One, go. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. Tonight we're doing a panel on a band called the Misfits. And Chris wrote up a little intro, and I'm going to read it up to you guys. Founded way back in 1977 in Lodi, New Jersey, the Misfits would slowly grow to become one of the most influential acts in rock and roll, with their legacy launched into the stratosphere long after the band's original demise. Led by vocalist, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist Glenn Danzig, the punk rock quartet took its inspiration for its songs and unique imagery from B-horror movie films. I almost messed that up. From 1977 to 1983, Danzig, along with bassist Jerry Only, guitarist Bobby Steele, who we have on tonight with us, and later on Doyle, and a multitude of other musicians would record and release singles and albums and tour the United States, although their infectious horror-themed songs sadly never pulled them out of the punk rock club scene. By the mid to late 80s, several years past their breakup, the Misfits slowly began to see a significant rise in popularity among punk rock fans, but also now among the fans of hardcore metal and goth. While they did not have a hit song on the radio or a gold album, the band's iconic Fiend Skull logo sold tons of t-shirts and merchandise to nearly rival that of bands like Kiss. Misfits songs have been covered by some of the biggest recording acts in the world, including Green Day, My Chemical Romance, Blink 182, Guns N' Roses, and of course Metallica, who certainly had a big helping hand in the band's rediscovery. The crossover appeal for the Misfits today is so wide that the band's reunion is likely the biggest success story in the history of rock and roll, quoted Chris Allo. While they've never made it beyond the clubs in the 80s, the original Misfits, as they are now referred to, are now a headline arena act, having sold out prestigious venues such as the Los Angeles Forum and the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden in New York City. Please welcome my esteemed panel of guests tonight as we discuss the ultimate band to listen to during the Halloween season, which we are in as we film this on October 20th, the Misfits. And tonight's panelists are, of course, Bobby Steele from the Misfits and currently from the Undead. We got Chris Allo, the longtime journalist, and this is his baby. This is his, he's the co-host tonight. We got the John Mcatee from the Mighty Incantation, of course, a regular and one of the main guys on the Rock Fantasy Files. We got local metal and punk historian from Middletown area, Ralph Tambora. And Jeff, I don't know all of your history, so please, I got Jeff down here in the corner. Introduce yourself and let us know what you do.
Hi, my name is Jeff, and I just want to say thank you so much to Chris and Steven and just everybody. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'm just a guy who loves the Misfits and loves music. And, you know, I would just say that music is like my baseball. And so I can talk baseball via music. And that's what I do. I just pontificate on minutia, especially in the realm of, the original Misfits. And yeah, I just talk about stuff that I like to talk about on my channel, which is From Us, which is my last name. And that's really who I am, just a guy.
Excellent. And how the format of tonight's show is, I've asked everyone to pick 5 of their favorite songs, which is really difficult when there's a million great songs from this band. And Chris told me to only pick 3. I said, no, I have to pick at least 5. And there's only a few of us. So he was worried I was going to have like 20 guests, but and also some experiences, maybe a concert you went to or any kind of Misfit memory that you'd like to discuss. And please, a question or two for our special guest, Bobby Steele, tonight. And I'm picking a couple. I'm kind of splitting this up on my thing. I'm cheating because it is my vlog. I'm going to pick some stuff from the original era. And I'm going to pick a couple songs from the Michael Graves era because I really love that material also. So, anyone's free to join me in that. But how about we start off with Ralph Tambora to kick off the show. You're going to kick it off. And it was baseball be the first pitch, right, Jeff?
So you want me to kick it off with like a song?
Yeah,
Or
kick out. Just do your 5 songs right now. We're gonna go around to each person and do their 5 songs. We're not gonna go around for each song. We'll do it that way. And
Okay.
if you a couple honorable mentions or whatever, we can swing back for, and a question for Bobby, of course, if you have one.
Okay, well, this was like really hard. I love almost everything by the Misfits, even a lot of the Michael Graves stuff. But I just did a really quick, looked at some of the albums and put a quick list together. I got Mommy first, Skulls, Horror Hotel, Horror Business, and my favorite I'm gonna say would be Halloween. And when I first got into the Misfits, being a Metallica fan, you seen Cliff Burton always wearing the shirts and everything. And so I went to the store, I went to Record World back then, and I grabbed the first Misfits album I seen, which was this one, Evil Live. And I didn't realize that I was playing it on the wrong speed for the first 2 weeks that I had it. One of my friends came over and he was like, yo, that sounds like it's not right. And then he clicked the speed and I was like, oh my God. But it was so fast that I thought that was the speed it was supposed to be played at. And I was actually starting to get into it a little. But then once they went on the right speed, that was it. I've been a fan for life. And yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a question for Bobby?
Well, yeah. This is a book that came out a while back, and in this book, they talk a little bit about a story about Bobby Steele meeting John Lennon at a club in New York City, and being pretty drunk, he supposedly puked on John Lennon's shoes. I don't know if that was a rumor or if that's real. So that would be my question, is just like to talk about that experience of how that went down.
Oh boy, that's like such a played out story. I'll tell you. I don't know. Okay, I was pretty wiped out that night. I was told by the club manager and owner that it happened, but I've also been told by the doorman that John Lennon never did show up at the Mud Club. So it's kind of up in the air. But the whole thing is, John Lennon was like one of my heroes, and if it happened, it sucks because I would have rather been able to like actually have a conversation with him,
Sure.
than throw up on him. So it kind of comes down to that. It's like, was it a missed opportunity or wasn't it?
Okay.
Still think it's kind of cool to say you threw up on him.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Oh, it's a tough
it's
one.
way
to
more
start
than
off
I
with
ever
our
did.
special guest here. I don't think I can put him right on the spot here. Sorry, Bobby. Cool. Well, anyhow, so we're gonna move over. I guess we'll move over to a first timer on the channel. Jeff, welcome.
Hi. Okay, so I'm naming my 5 songs. I'm asking Bobby a question. Exactly.
Question or two. How many questions?
Haven't you asked enough?
I've asked Bobby so many questions over the years. You have no idea how many times Bobby's sick of hearing me ask him questions. He's been
But
so gracious.
never for my viewers. So we're gonna have.
That's
some-
true. That's true.
some people
He's
that
been
may
so
have
gracious
never
with his
heard
time
them,
over the years. All right, so my songs. This is tough. So here's the thing. Right off the bat, I love every single Misfit song. I know that's such a cliche, ridiculous thing to say, but it's true. I love them all. I love them all for different reasons at different times. It's like the changing of the seasons. You get into a certain mood, you like a certain song. Because I have to pick 5 in particular, I'm going to go with some that have really been in heavy rotation over more recent years. I'm going to start with an all-time personal favorite, Children in Heat. Phenomenal track. Number 2, the track that I would use to introduce someone to the Misfits for the first time if they've never heard the band, Astro Zombies. Number 3, I'm going to go with an earlier song, bit of a deep cut from the Static Age era, Theme for a Jackal. 4, I'm going to go with another personal favorite because of that chorus, Get Lost in the Whoa Whoa Whoas with Night of Living Dead. And 5, we're going to go with some brutality that is Earth AD with the title track Earth AD.
Great song.
And my question, oh my God, I don't know. Bobby, all right, how about this, Bobby? In 1979, when Bobby was with the Misfits, they played a big show for them, right, Bobby, at Irving Plaza. This was a big
Yeah.
deal to do this show.
Oh yeah.
It was a show that kind of like, when I think about it in hindsight after, all the research I've done, it's a show that really sort of exploded the Misfits in a big way in the New York scene.
Yeah, it did.
So what I did not know until very recently, this was a revelation because some new photos surfaced of Tish and Snooki being, they opened along with the Screaming Mad George's band before the Misfits went on. And Tish and Snooki sang Monster Mash with the Misfits. Is this true? Can you confirm this? I've never heard this before. Is that true?
I just got to cut it. This is why we needed Jeff. Jeff is the man.
Great.
Jeff is the man. I never heard that story. Jeff, that's, I'm sorry, Jeff. I just had to say that.
Thank you.
I really can't say that I remember much about that night.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that was like one of those things. The only thing I can really recall about that whole night was that Jerry's bass was so loud that we couldn't hear anything but Jerry's bass. And the only way that I was able to play was I did just watch Joey and watched his hands hit the snare drum. And that's how I was able to keep time.
Incredible.
It was rough.
So, Jeff, do you have another good question? Because our viewers, maybe Bobby is sick of your questions, but
let me think about something.
We'll come around and we'll hit you.
Yeah. Let me think about something. I'll try to sweep Bobby off his feet. Go ahead. Keep going.
Give me a couple of your favorite Michael Graves songs when you come back on the second time around.
Who, me?
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
No problem. Try to hit people up with that tonight too, since we
sure
we had a couple. Someone else is showing up. His name is Puny Bear. Must be a wild monster of some sort. Steve Levin, also known affectionately as Puny Bear, has made the show.
Hi, Puny Bear. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Yeah, got to change that name. That's my cat. Yeah.
Well, Puny Bear is famous too. Puny Bear has his own Instagram.
Yeah, you let me join before I was able to change that. So
that's okay.
No, it's cool. At least you told me because the one time that you weren't on that we did it, I was Puny Bear for the whole entire meeting, and I didn't back out like 2 minutes before we ended. So I appreciate it, honestly. I would rather be for this meeting known as who I really am, but Puny Bear otherwise good.
All right, so we're going to let you set yourself up down there, and we're going to move over to Mr. John Mcatee. Welcome to the program, sir.
Yeah, great to be here. It's an honor to be with you here, Bobby. Yeah, it's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I pretty much, I guess I'm a late bloomer for the Misfits. I mean, I kind of got into them when I was about, 15, 16, around that time. And that was around 85, 86-ish or something like that. And I just started noticing people wearing the patches and stuff. And obviously Metallica was wearing that stuff. And I just kind of, checked it out or whatever. I think the first album I bought was Legacy of Brutality, but that one was not really a good starter for me because I was more of a metal kid, and that was definitely a lot more. I don't know. It just had more of that almost Elvis-y type sound to it at that time, which I wasn't into that much. But then after a while, I got into it. But then I started hearing stuff like Earth AD and kind of started, really digging it. I just like the more little, nice raw old school punk rock vibe of some of the earlier stuff. It just that really open guitar, kind of thing. I don't know. I just love that, and all those old school kind of punk bands and early hardcore had that kind of stuff. But anyway, for my top five, I mean, it's really difficult because when I get in the mood to listen to the Misfits, I just listen to a whole album and kind of absorb it all, or like an EP or something, just kind of get all vibed out on it. So never really thought like, oh wow, this song's really great. I really like, I like a lot all the albums, up until Earth AD a lot. I like Legacy of Brutality is a good one too. After that, I don't know a lot of stuff. I actually listened to some of the Grave stuff just recently, and it's good, but I wasn't good enough for me to really make analyze it enough to say if it's my favorite, because I just love the early stuff. I just love that whole eerie vibe. It just gives you that kind of, you know, yeah, the Halloween monster type vibe in the music. It's definitely really cool, and something that really I just has become a you know, kind of an influence on me, as a lot of those older punk bands really had that kind of, I don't know, just that vibe, you know, and Misfits are definitely one of the leaders in it. But I picked for my top 5. Well, actually, I have more than 5 here. Okay,
Go ahead.
of course I have. But anyway, I went with, I mean, it's really no order because, like I said, I like everything almost the same in the early stuff. But I really like the Beware version of Last Caress. That version's great. That's so good. I mean, the song's a great song anyway, but that version, it's a little more dramatic. It has a couple different, you know, just a little bit of different vibe, a couple different parts here. Not really different parts, but just different structure, I guess. I think that's really cool. I like London Dungeon a lot. I think it's really cool.
Yes.
That riff in it's a really badass riff. Yeah, just a real big fan of it. Then like off Earth AD, I mean, I really like the whole album a whole lot, so it's hard to tell, but I just picked Queen Wasp. I thought it was a good one. Then Die Die My Darling, just a great song. I just remember, I don't know, like listening to that, like some chick, Sweet 16, and just like we started a circle pit at her Sweet 16 listening to that song, which is pretty ridiculous, but it's just great memories, you know, of that. And then I go with one that Jeff picked, Earth AD. It's just such a good, heavy song. It was one of the ones, being more from the metal background, you just love that heavy vibe of that song. Really kind of was like, oh wow, this is, you know, they have some really heavy stuff, not just the you know, kind of more spooky stuff, I guess. So those are pretty much my top, well, it's my top 6, I think I said, but whatever. No, I guess my top 5. So yeah, that's cool. And as far as a question for me, I mean, I don't know a huge amount of history of the Misfits. I mean, like I mentioned before this, you know, the Misfits were kind of like my hometown heroes at the time. Like all my friends, some of the older bands I used to hang out here, like, I don't know, Havoc and I can't even think, the Deranged and stuff like that, but they all were big Misfits fans. And it was just like a pride thing of having such a killer band, basically from our local area. I mean, Lodi is like, what, 2 towns over from Farallon and stuff. And, you know, it just was, you know, it was just really awesome. But I was just kind of curious about, you know, the early days of the band, like how, you know, how did you know, get in the band, or how did the band kind of come to be, and just what was the vibe back early, you know, I mean, that's the 70s. That's really heavy stuff and really, you know, over the top stuff for that time, I think. I mean, there's a lot of punk going on, but this was like, you know, different, you know, it had that whole ghoul type vibe to it, or I don't know how I want to, if I'm explaining it right, but you know, everyone knows the Misfits sound.
Okay, so yeah, I actually, the band that was already together when I came in, because they originally had like well, there was first like the original lineup with Glenn and Jerry. Glenn was playing keyboards, Jerry was on bass, and Manny was on drums. They had no guitar player, and from there it moved up to the Static Age lineup, which they replaced Manny with Mr. Jim and brought in Franche Coma on guitar, and then I came along like right after that, and I had run an ad in the Aquarian, which you guys might be aware of, the local music paper. Yeah. I was looking for a punk band that, you know, that was like established and had some kind of management and a record deal and everything. And Glenn called and he kind of lied, because the record deal was his own record label and he was his own management and stuff. But I did the audition, and it was in Jerry's garage. And after we played, you know, a bunch of songs, we went into Jerry's house and they put on the Bullet 45, and I was hooked. I was just like, this is like a sound I've been like looking for my whole life. You know, this was really, you know, it really grabbed me. I was friends with Bobby Snuts. I've been playing guitar in the Horror Lords after the guitar player had quit. And I mentioned to him that I was being offered, to be in the Misfits, and he just looked me in the eye and he says, "Bobby, if you don't take that job, you're crazy." So I took it, and it just went from there.
Yeah.
Didn't last, but.
And what was the vibe out like when you started playing? Did it hit, right away, or was it just like you guys were kind of like the freak of among the freaks?
We were like the opening band. The first gig I did, we were opening for a guy, Trixie Sly, who wound up not showing up for the show. So because of that, we waited. They told us, don't go on at your regular time slot. Wait like another hour and go on, take his time slot. And from there, we did a couple of more opening shows, and gradually we started, getting to a status where we were able to headline at Max's. Then, of course, we opened for first we opened for Suicide at Haraz, and then I think a month or two later we opened for The Damned, and that's when things really started to open up for us, because we really did a great job at the Damned show. What we did was about an hour before we were scheduled to go on, we went over to the CI studio where we'd been recording, and we ran through the set there. So we were all warmed up. We jumped in a cab. We raced back to the club. We just ran right up on the stage. We were all warmed up, ready to go, and we just blasted through the set again. So it really made an impact, because usually you get on stage, you're kind of cold, you're kind of stiff. This way, we were already warmed up, we were loosened up, and we just really made a really good impression that night. So from there, the Damned came to us a couple of days later and asked us if we wanted to go to England, and open for them on a tour there. And things just really took off from there. We did the Halloween show at Irving Plaza, and that was a time with the Monster Movie Club. So there was the draw between us and the Monster Movie Club. We did a lot of really heavy advertising on that one. What we did was we made basically billboards. We made about 4 or 5 billboards. They were probably about 10 foot by 8 foot each, that we printed on photographer's seamless paper, and we plastered those up around the city. So it was real eye catching, and that was the whole idea. Everything that Glenn and Jerry did was always to really get people's attention visually. Glenn was a visual artist, and whatever Glenn could come up with idea wise, Jerry always had the means of making it come to reality. So it just really that was a big event. I think we were just as surprised as anybody else at the amount of the turnout that we got that night. But it's being built as a Halloween party, a costume contest, and everything. So we had all those things just came together and just really brought in a huge crowd.
Awesome. That's really cool. That's it's just nice to hear about the old school determination of just making things happen or working really hard to get noticed and stuff. I think that's actually a lost art with a lot of bands. They don't spend enough time actually promoting themselves and doing these kind of things to really
you're right. It's true.
So that's great advice to take, is the way you did it back in the day, of just making those kind of posters, just anything visually, just make it something that people want to check out. That's really awesome. Okay.
Cool. That was a great story. Thanks, John. I got to move over to Mr. Chris Allo because he doesn't like me making him go last, because sometimes he has to wait around for hours on other channels. And I'm trying to make
sometimes.
No. I don't have a couple of the other guys on that talk back and forth and argue, so it's going pretty smooth. So yes. Chris, welcome to the show, and this is one of your ideas. We've talked about this last winter, actually, of doing the Misfits, and then we just kept postponing, and here we are, and it was the perfect timing because we are in October. It's Halloween time, and like Chris said, great music to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better band to listen to at Halloween season, to me, other than the Misfits. I mean, yeah, I listen to the Misfits all year long, just like I watch horror movies all year long, and the Undead, of course. But it's a pleasure and an honor to be a member of this esteemed panel talking about one of my favorite bands. And I have very similar story to Ralph. first discovered the Misfits through Metallica. I mean, like in 1986, they did not take a picture without wearing somebody in the band, if not all of them, although Lars didn't wear it too much, but the other three guys were always either wearing a Misfits shirt or a Samhain shirt. I mean, that's all they wore. And from interviewing Eerie Von, he told me, at the time they were printing up all these special shirts and sending them to Metallica to have them keep wearing it, and it certainly helped. Evil Live was my first Misfits record as well, and although I didn't listen to it at the wrong speed because I had the cassette, I'm completely honest. Similar to John's story of not immediately falling in love with Legacy of Brutality, I didn't immediately fall in love with Evil Live. It wasn't until I got Walk Among Us that it clicked, and I was like, oh, holy shit, this stuff is amazing. But anyway, are we doing all five, Steve? Or?
Yes, you're gonna do all
okay.
five.
I'll just burn through them because nobody wants to hear me talk anyway.
Yes, I do.
Halloween, especially for Halloween season, that's one of my favorites. What else? I only had a couple records next to me. Bullet. What else? London Dungeon, of course, which is on the Evil Live, this Evil Live 7-inch. I also love Blood Feast. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and if I'm not mistaken, Jeff would know better than me, but I really think Blood Feast was originally written for Samhain, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm so sorry, just to interject. Remind us to talk about Blood Feast when we're going back around. Very interesting tidbit discovered. Sorry, go ahead.
Great.
Well, listen, again, if there was anybody to discover it, it would be Jeff, so that's awesome. And one of my all-time favorite movies, which I just did on my top 10 all-time favorite horror movies of all time, and it's an amazing song, Night of the Living Dead. Those are my top 5 Misfits songs. And regarding London Dungeon, which of course Bobby was such a huge part of the legacy of that story. I don't want to specifically ask you about the whole, jail thing, unless you want to bring that part up. But I'm fascinated, and if Jeff probably did a video on it, and I might have missed it, because Jeff has a lot of videos, and everybody that's a Misfits fan should subscribe to Jeff's channel. If you're not subscribing to Jeff's channel, you're not a Misfits fan.
All right, so tell us what that channel is.
Yeah, Jeff.
It's just my last name. It's Frumus. FRU. It's this right here.
Okay.
FRU MESS. That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Got to do it. But
Check it out.
my Bobby question, I'm kind of like, it blows my mind that you guys, like, what was I don't want to say the thinking, but how did you guys wind up going to England thinking that you were going to open for the Damned, but you really weren't? I mean, I know you guys were young, but to me, it's just mind-boggling, like, to fly over there without an itinerary and contracts and knowing where what's going on. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. And then, of course, eventually that led to at least the creation of an amazing song, London Dungeon. So,
yeah, actually, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding there. Okay, the Damned had invited us to come over and do a tour with them. Back then, you couldn't like tour internationally without like going through a union and a talent agency. So we had to join the American Musicians Union, and we got hooked up with Premier Talent, which is like one of the major talent agencies in the world. And they did have we had it was the equivalent of a fax. I can't remember what they called it back then, but it's the equivalent of a fax from the dance manager with the itinerary, with detailing how much money we were going to get paid every night. And the contracts were drawn up, and Jerry had flown out there ahead of us to get the contract signed. And he was, I guess, intimidated by the Damned's manager, who wasn't the most kind guy. Okay. And he didn't want to admit to us that he didn't get the contract signed. He called us up, said, I got the contracts, everything's ready to go. And we flew out there, and we did the first show, went to get paid, and we're told, you're not getting paid. And Glenn said, yeah, we're getting, we It was
Uh-huh.
agreed we get paid this much money, and the guy says, no, it wasn't. And Glenn says, yeah, we have a contract. And the guy said, well, let me see the contract. And Jerry was
Oh,
I didn't get the contract signed. And so, you know, so we went to do the second show, and we were told again, remember, you're not getting paid for this. So Glenn and Jerry and maybe Joey had said, you know, look, we're just walking off now. And my thing was, you know, look, we've got premier talent behind us. We got the American Federation of Musicians behind us. We've got what is basically a contract. Okay, another thing back then, for every man hour of a musician working in one country, a musician from another country was traded for. So there was already an agreement that we were trading our time with a band called the Fabulous Poodles. So this was all like cut and dry. So I said, let's just do the tour, just suck it up. When we get home, we go to Premier Talent, we go to the union, and they'll sort it out and we'll get our money. But they didn't have the confidence to like stick it out. So we just pulled out of the tour.
Interesting. Well, that definitely sounds like you were more prepared than I had heard in previous stories. It kind of sounded like somebody was like, hey, why don't you go on the road with us? And you guys were like, okay, and flew over there. But it definitely sounds like you guys were a lot more prepared. But unfortunately,
well, that was Sam's management kind of put out a press release right away to cover his ass. That, you know, what you said is like what went down. So that's why, you know, that's kind of the story that's you know, been out there.
Awesome. Thanks for clearing that up.
Oh, sure.
Nice. Cool, Chris. I guess I'm just gonna give my picks and then we'll move over to Steve Levin and we'll wrap around and
finally it was a different question.
What's that?
I said finally somebody asked a different question.
A different one. Okay. So I'm gonna go through my picks and my number. I did a top 4 from the Graves era and from the original era. And I'll start off with the original era. 4 would be Devil's Whorehouse. 3 would be London Dungeon. 2 would Halloween. And these aren't really in any order because I love all these songs pretty equal. And Skulls has to be right there too. And you're gonna get these songs. You're listening to these songs, and you're gonna get these songs in your head because this music, even though it's so punky, is so catchy. Like some punk rock is not that catchy. I think this is really catchy music, you 100%. Know. And it's and the Misfits, of course, were one of the best. I'm not a big punk guy, but I've always liked the Misfits. I've always liked the Ramones. I like certain punk, and maybe I wasn't exposed to a lot, even though I had the record shop. I've always been more of a metal guy. And moving over to the 90s era and with Michael Graves, I absolutely love both of those albums. I think it's just it was more metal. It was almost like Suicidal Tendencies or something mixed into it a little bit more than the earlier Aurora stuff, but it was a little more polished, and maybe I liked that a little bit. But I loved some of the song, the titles and in the content, because it was all about great stuff that I liked growing up from the 60s and B movies. Not that the other songs weren't, but I love like number 4 is Walk Among Us. I love that. I get that in my head. Forbidden Zone, because it's about the Planet of the Apes, and I'm a big Planet of the Apes collector, as is Chris.
Yeah.
The Crawling Eye. I've had that in my head for about 5 days now because I'm listening to this stuff. And Crimson Ghost, I think is a great song too. And I could just say the whole album, just like John. We do these episodes, and it doesn't matter what band it is. I never really listen to songs. I listen to albums, unless I'm somewhere like at work and I have everything on a spinner, which plays different stuff. But I'm the kind of person that if I in the car, I'm going to listen to the whole thing, and even if it's streaming, I'm not going to just pick songs and iPod shuffle. I don't really do iPod shuffle, but other than that, at work we do that. But I agree with John on that. We listen to mostly albums, and I mean, most people do from this era. I think rock and metal people like to listen to the full album. It's a different generation. We're just picking songs, and I'm gonna push my question over to Jeff. Of course, Bobby and I have a long-standing relationship, and I think we weren't talking about this when we were recording earlier. Bobby, with his band, The Undead, one of the first bands to ever come to Rock Fantasy way back in the early days in like 1985, 86. Bobby came and did a signing for, I believe, the album that I'm looking at is right above your head to the left there. Yeah, that one. I still got it hung up in the store with your autograph on it. And it was one of the first bands that we actually had in the store back around that time. Along Hallows Eve was around that. You might have been the first band we had in for a little signing. And I don't remember, did you play in Middletown?
Yeah, we played the Rock Palace a few times.
So that was around 89. So maybe it was a little bit later then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, earlier I was at your store with Never Say Die in 86.
Yeah.
Yeah.
86. So you were there 80. That was the very beginning. Yep. So cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And Ralph probably has the flyers from each other. That's why I bring Ralph to every party here on Rock Fantasy Files. If Ralph collects every party, and me and John will do shows about other genres of music, and Ralph will be telling me the stories like, dude, John didn't play that club, he played the other one. So that's our story.
An interesting thing is that Slayer has the album Live Undead. Well, Undead has an album called Live Slayer.
Yeah, that was that was a bit of a joke too. The when the Live Slayer thing came out, we were getting a lot of people coming up to me and telling me that, hey, I got your album. And I said, we don't have an album. Somebody came out and showed it to me. And so, right away we had a contact. What was it? What was the label that they were?
Metal Blade.
Metal Blade. We had to contact Metal Blade, and we had to get a lawyer and contact Metal Blade and say, look, there's some confusion here. So they agreed to just put a sticker on the album that made it clear that it was a Slayer album, because the way it was designed, it was kind of like the way Undead was even written was very similar to our logo.
Okay.
And it was recorded live in New York City. So
yeah.
It really really threw people off. So just as a joke, I at that time I kind of said, if I ever come up with a good live recording, I'm going to put it out and call it Live Slayer. And actually we were playing in Middletown in I think it was 91, and I had just gotten a 4-track cassette recorder, so I brought it along with me. I just wanted to play around with it. We patched it into the board and recorded the show. And I was home and I was listening to it, and I realized people had always said, you guys are so much better live than your records. Your live, shows just really have an edge to it. And I'm listening to this 4-track recording, and I'm thinking, wow, people are right. This really has something going on here. So I spent the next couple of months cleaning up the tracks, balancing them out, creating a mix of it, and started shopping it around to put it out as an album, and trying to come up with a title for it. And all of a sudden it hit me, Live Slayer.
There you go.
So we didn't put the title on the front. The title was only on the back and on the spine, just that there'd be no confusion. And we pretty quickly, heard from Slayer's label, who at the time was American
Def Jam.
Def American. And I think they were considering a legal action against me on it. And so they called my label, and the guy from my label called me up and said, well, he wants a copy of the record. What should I do? I said, well, tell him we'll trade him for a copy of the new Danzig album. And so we got a copy of the new Danzig album. We mailed Live Slayer to them. Meanwhile, Live Slayer was winding up. So ironically, it came out the same day as Decade of Aggression. Stores got confused and were putting our album in the Slayer bin. And we picked up thousands of new fans. And the album sold phenomenally well because of the confusion. but there was nothing they could legally do because there was nothing on the front of the albums, you know, that would confuse anybody. And the artwork was clearly not a heavy metal band. So nothing ever came of it, except that we sold a lot of records.
And how many customers got home and put it on and say, wow, that doesn't sound like Slayer.
I can imagine. I can imagine, but we got a lot of mail about it, you know, from people saying, "Well, you know, I thought this was the Slayer album. This stuff's really good. I really liked it."
Cool.
And you know, unfortunately, we never got paid.
Oh.
The owner of the label had made a mistake in the contract. Once I started going over the contract because I was, you know, considering taking it to court, and I started reading the contract. Now, contracts are always kind of really complicated. And he left out a detail. So it said that it was something like for every copy sold, we would get $4. And normally there would also be deductions made. It'd be so the artist would be getting $4 minus the cost of the pressing, minus the cost of promotion, minus this. He forgot to put the deductions in. And I think what happened was when he realized that he screwed up and now he owed me a couple of $100,000.
Oh.
He couldn't afford to pay me, and he got spooked, and he just disappeared.
Oh, God.
And the sad part was this was the guy that back when long before I was in the Misfits, he ran a punk club in Central Jersey, and he just came over and started talking to me. He was the nicest guy, and he hung out with me, and he told me, if you ever get a band, you know, come here, I'll definitely give you a gig. He was a nice guy. I would have, if he had come to me and said, hey, Bobby, I noticed I made a mistake, I would have been, no problem, let's renegotiate this. And I would have let him go on it because, yeah, he made a mistake. You know, so, but I could never track the guy down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Terrible.
Terrible story, but interesting.
It was.
Time, though.
So, and Bobby, before I move to Steve, we're making Steve late, but he did come in late, so we have to punish him a little bit, right, Steve?
Yeah.
That's okay. No worries.
They're the last class. Go sit in the corner. It was interesting when you brought up the Aquarian magazine because I sold it for years in the store, and going back, that's
how I found you.
Now, yeah, now you got the internet. Now you got everything. Back then, that was the paper. You would wait every week and get the Aquarian, look for gigs.
100%.
So many people were looking, you know, and if you were in a band, you'd look in the classified to see for the bands. And I don't know if it's still in business now because I used to get it still, but since the pandemic, I haven't seen it. They used to drop it in my mailbox, and I think it went back to being called, it was called the East Coast Rocker for a while too.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure if it's still around at all and if anyone sees it anymore.
I was going to say, you know, pre-pandemic, I used to see it and pick it up. But yeah, who knows now?
Might have been the death knell, the pandemic for that was printed. Anyhow, well, Steve Levin, welcome. I'm glad you could join. Of course, Steve is was a longtime employee of Rock Fantasy and a great contributor to the Rock Fantasy Files channel, and put together an episode a couple weeks called Guitar Porn, and that's up on the channel now. But Steve, let's talk Misfits with Bobby and you.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure to be here. Absolutely an honor to be here with you, Bobby. I was fortunate enough to meet you when I was working at Rock Fantasy. You and Diana stopped in and signed some stuff, and it's always a pleasure. So one of the funny things is the death knell of going last is that somebody will always ask the question that you had planned, and Ralph had mentioned the brilliantly titled Live Slayer, which it's just so funny. It just cracks me up every time I look at that. I think it's just what a great rebuttal, you know. They had Live Undead, so yeah, we're going to get them back. Here's Live Slayer. So, but that was a really cool story. I definitely enjoyed hearing that. So, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'll just go through my top 5 real quick. In no particular order. Earth AD is obviously one of my favorites. I think that everybody that is a metalhead, for the most part, will agree that that's one of the heavier ones. And Death Comes Ripping and Blood Feast would probably be 2 of my favorite tunes off of that. But like was already aforementioned, pretty much every song on that's great. And I think that's the same with pretty much every Misfits release. There's not like, oh man, I got to skip past this song. I don't like this one. I mean, everyone's just, it's just a great experience from start to end. I just really dig the band. That's why I have that on my arm right there and get in the camera. So
yeah.
So another couple of my favorites, off Walk Among Us. I love Bullet. I love Vampira. My God, that song is so good. Once I listen to that, it's like Steve had said, it's just stuck in your head all day. Great tune. Bullet also, just such a crazy, great hook to that. And it's the topic of it is really cool too. I just really enjoy that tune. And probably surprisingly, another couple of my favorite songs are actually off TV Casualty. I love Hybrid Moments, and I really love Hollywood Babylon. Band rooms I was playing with, we used to do like a doom metal version of Hollywood Babylon. And if I can ever get my ass in gear again and start playing with a band, that is definitely going to be a song that we cover in some way or another. From the Michael Graves era, I really do like those songs too. I was actually fortunate enough to catch them live at that time. From Famous Monsters, I love Witch Hunt. From American Psycho, Steve had already said it. Walk Among Us is just a great tune. So that would pretty much sum up my favorites. I think my first experience with the Misfits was I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and my parents moved me up here probably in the middle of 10th grade it was. So I was 15 and a half. And I met some guys that were a little older than me. The one guy used to drive me down to New York City a lot. And we were really into metal. And Bleecker Bob's was always one of our stops. So, you know, when thumbing through the albums and up on the wall, you'd see the 45s. And there was always Misfits. And I would look at them. I'd be like, man, look at that. Look at all the, like, look how crazy spooky it was. But there was so much stuff back then. And the way it was is there was actually only one copy of anything. And if you didn't get that copy then, there's a good chance you wouldn't find it for a while because most of the stuff we were buying was imports, you know. So the first thing that I actually ever picked up was Sam Hain Unholy Passion 3-song. And I guess this was probably already mentioned and I wasn't here, but yeah, I didn't know whether it was supposed to be on 45 or 33. So I think I was listening to it on the wrong speed for probably 2 or 3 months before I actually figured it out. And that'll always remind me of a good friend of mine and Ralph's, who's sadly deceased, John Mungo, listening to Iron Maiden Run to the Hills 45 on the wrong speed. And it's just like when you hear the story, it's so great because it's going, run through the hills. And he was like dancing thing. And like, I think my buddy Ken, Ralph could correct me if I'm wrong, said, you moron, it's on the wrong speed. And he said, I don't think Mungo liked it as much then. I think he liked it better on the
slower. He liked the slower Quaaludes version.
Yep. Funny stuff, man. So, Bobby, I have 2 questions for you. The first one would be, when you played with the Dam, was Algie Ward playing bass at the time with them?
When we went to England, Algie was the bass player, but when we played with them in New York, Captain Sensible was still on bass.
Okay. Was Algie cool or was he like kind of a tool?
No, he was nice. He was actually the nicer of the bunch at that point.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I really loved the band Tank that he went on to play with years later. They're kind of very Motorheadish, but just a great band. So it's always awesome to hear that guys who are kind of your heroes are cool and not the opposite. You know, I just hate that. But
I've always seen that like the more famous they were, the nicer they were, and the more wannabe they were, the more pricks that they were.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I guess it varies. You know, the one thing that I always try to take into consideration when you meet somebody is you really don't know what kind of day they had. You don't know what's going on with them. So it's possible you meet somebody when something really shitty just happened to them and it's just not the right time. And, you know, just unfortunately for you, that can make you feel a certain way towards somebody, you know. So, so since Ralph, yeah, absolutely. So since Ralph brilliantly took my question, so good one, Ralph. That's, you know, that shows that great minds think alike for sure. Bobby, you were really, you know, early on in the punk thing. Who influenced you? What were your major influences?
As far as punk or just all around?
Just all around for the most part.
Well, like, you know, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, then of course, you know, the Ramones, Alice Cooper, boy, like Mata Hoople, a lot of the early 70s, like, kind of almost like the bands that kind of like bridged into punk rock, like Mata Hoople, and I'm trying to think of a few of the others at that point, where things were kind of like, in the early 70s to mid 70s, things were getting like really like bloated with like a lot of synthesizers and mellotrons, and you had to have like to have a band that could get a gig, you had to have like $100,000 worth of equipment. And then like bands like Bad Company and BTO came out, and all of a sudden it was back to guitar rock. So, it was things like that that really kind of like helped influence me also, and, hearing Anarchy in the UK for the first time, and just Steve Jones. I mean, this is a guy that was only playing guitar for a few months and was breaking out some of the most incredible stuff with like power, and his leads were all like so like well defined. He's, Steve Jones is probably one of the most underrated guitarists ever, because the guy, did so much with so little, and he's done so many incredible things. I mean, he's done movie soundtracks and things like that people forget about, but the guy really, was brilliant. In fact, I have somebody actually gave me one of Steve's guitars a few years ago, and I have it hanging on the wall over there. It's autographed and everything, and
Wow.
that was really something. I mean, for a fan, to come to me at a gig one night and say, I got something I want to give you. I'm going to come to your gig tomorrow night with it, and shows up with, and doesn't show up. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, sure, right. And a few days later, he contacts us again. He goes, I'm sorry I didn't make it, but can you meet me at Denny's, tomorrow morning at like 10 o'clock, and you're in a band that's on tour, you got schedules and stuff. So we're like, okay, we'll do it. And we show up at Denny's, and the guy shows up and he hands me this guitar case. I opened it up, and here's this white Les Paul signed by Steve Jones, and I was just like blown away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's humbling, man, right? That's really cool.
Yeah, that really like, floored me, man. That's something, I didn't expect.
No, that's neat. I mean, that really like your music meant enough to him that he would give up something like that. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure hearing all these great stories whenever we do these. Thanks. And just really interesting to hear all this stuff.
And excellent. I would like to have Bobby back on the channel down the road to just talk about the Undead and his current band, and a band that he's been with for how many years, Bobby?
Whoa, I think what's this? I
was gonna say, maybe ask Jeff.
40 years. I think 40 years now.
40.
Wow. The 40th anniversary. You should be playing the big arenas and the giant stadium.
I wish, man. I wish we could just be playing right now. If this
playing something, yes.
Yeah, sure. If this pandemic wasn't going around right now,
let's hope it burns itself out soon.
But right now we're recording, we're working on stuff. We just I don't know if you saw this, but we released this a while ago. It's very limited edition.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that was super limited.
Super limited. I think I have 4 copies left. We're selling them. We're basically using it to raise money to help our daughter out right now. And we're working on that thing. Then also we started like 5 years ago. We started working on a project. Our drummer came up with this, that it was like the 35th anniversary of Act Your Rage, or the 30th anniversary of Act Your Rage. And we should do something special for that. So we decided to put it out to work on a double album, and one album would be the original one, just remastered, and the second LP would be all new versions of the songs. And Diana started, getting out there and talking to people, and we decided to make this into like an all-star release. We've got Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses and a few other things. We have Des Cadena from Black Flag, Greg Hedson from the Circle Jerks and Bad Religion, Dirk Verburen from Megadeth, Steve Garvey from the Buzzcocks, Al Story from Doyle,
Amazing.
We have actually Alice Cooper has this thing out in Phoenix, Arizona called the Solid Rock. It's a teen center where kids can like learn music and everything. So we have a whole bunch of the Solid Rock kids doing backing vocals on Hollywood Boulevard with Tim Capello and another local favorite up there, Paula Scola, just like doing this intertwining solos all throughout the song. It's amazing.
Yeah, Paul from Middletown. Yeah, wow.
Yep. We have Argyle Goolsby on there. We have another New York guy, Matt Witt, who's this incredible rockabilly guy who he plays really like raw rockabilly guitar, just stomps his feet to the beat, and the guy is phenomenal. Rick Rivets, who was like the original founder of the New York Dolls. This was actually the last thing he did before he passed away. And then another guy, if you know anything about Swedish like death metal, Andreas Holma, who's been in several big Swedish death metal bands.
Okay.
Is also on there. So it's almost completed, but some things have gotten in the way right now. So we're trying to get worked out, but we got about 3 more songs that I just have to mostly complete the mixes on. I have to redo the bass track on one song, and from there we're gonna work on getting it out. But also you can actually get this as a download. It's like on iTunes and all the online things. It's
Spotify and Amazon. Cool.
So that's where we're at. Thought I saw Diana come down here a second ago, but I think she's babysitting.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a granddaughter. She's like the greatest thing ever, man.
Nice.
Yeah. This is like an experience I never expected to have, and it's just been like, it's kind of been a blessing that the pandemic is on, because it just has given me all the time in the world to get to actually see like a baby grow up and develop a personality. And there's a few difficulties going on right now, so we've run into a lot of debt over it. So we're working on some fundraising ideas to help with that also.
Excellent. So let's wrap back around here, and Ralph, what's your closing statements for the Misfits episode? And Ralph has the coolest backdrop there.
I got a Misfits tattoo. I can't see it, but anyway, I got a good story. In '96, I was working at Caroline Distribution Warehouse, and we knew about the Misfits making their comeback, and we knew that they were trying out new singers and stuff. And about a year before they did anything, Michael Graves, Doyle, and Jerry came into the warehouse. I got all my albums signed, and I got to meet before he even had a devil lock or anything. They actually did their debut without the Chance on Hallows Eve. They played the Chance opening up for Typo Negative, and it was a secret show. And since it was Halloween time, I went to the show with some black stuff under my eyes, and I pulled my hair down to a devil lock, and I was walking around the show, and people were thinking that I was like in the band or something, because they heard there was rumors that the Misfits would make its debut. They only came out and did like 4 songs or something, but that was like their debut. And then the next day in the city, they played on Halloween someplace, and that was like more of their debut. But they played a secret show at the Chance, and then one of the other great shows they did was one of their first big headlining shows was they played Action Park, and that was a great day. All day long.
I was at that.
Punks and metalhead. Yeah, and Bobby
I was at that show.
Yeah, I remember you came out stage and you sang 138 or something.
138. Michael Graves.
I got the
gave me his backstage lanyard so I could get up on the stage.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was a great show, great day. The whole day at Action Park, all the punks and metalheads on the slides all day, and then we had this big concert, and it was packed. It was a lot of people there for that. And I remember Bobby getting up there, and just such a great memory. And that's it for me.
And they've been renamed. It's been renamed Class Action Park. There was actually
I was going to say
so many people got injured.
Jeez,
Not
Louise.
that day, hopefully,
the
but
deadliest place on earth.
Yeah.
yeah, you got it, Bobby. All right, so I guess we'll pop back over to Jeff, and Jeff's got a couple. He told me he's got a couple things. He's got some interesting things to talk about.
So I wrote some stuff down so I wouldn't forget it because I wanted to listen intently to Bobby, who, you know, it's amazing how you think you can know a lot of stuff about something and you always learn something new. I learned a bunch of new things during this session, so I'm really grateful for that. And all right, just interrupt me and cut me off if I say too many things. I'm going to try and go very quickly, but just a couple of things based on the conversation. First thing, in terms of the tour with the Damned in England, this is kind of like 2020 hindsight, armchair quarterback sort of commentary here. But it's a shame that the band did not stick it out on that tour. I wish that you guys had stayed on that tour because I think that would have gotten you guys signed to like a major label or something. That would have exploded you guys out of the gate. It was such a blunder on Jerry and Glenn's part, but at the same time, there were other factors. And again, please, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, because
all right,
what do I know ultimately? But just that, you know, you guys didn't have the stuff that you needed to put on a good show or to put on a better show than maybe you could have, like, you know, the whole thing about, you know, Joey Image. He was a hard hitting drummer. And Joey destroyed the snare they gave him. It was from like 1934. It was an old school. So he didn't even have a snare on or he didn't have the right drum to hit when they're trying to play the show, you know, coupled with all these other things, as Bobby was talking about, you know, not being treated nice and whatnot, they walked off. But had they not, where would they have gone? I think that they would have gotten signed. Somebody would have taken notice. Maybe CBS or somebody. Like later, there was almost this CBS thing, the Clash. Could have been something else. Blood Feast. So there was a recently unearthed interview from 1982 on WNUF, maybe, no, WSOU, maybe. It's one of those, some radio station where Glenn is taking calls, and he talks about, we're going to be doing the soundtrack to Blood Feast 2, which kind of blew my mind because, wait a minute, Blood Feast 2 came out in 2002 or 2004,
right?
And it was directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis. So how is that possible? Are they referring to Blood Feast? And this is what Blood Diner. This is what I didn't know. Way before Blood Diner, directed by Jackie Kong in 1987, came out, there was going to be a Blood Feast 2 directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis back in the early 80s. And I don't know anything more about it, but that the Misfits, post Bobby Steele, were going to be on this, or were planning in some way, shape, or form to be on the soundtrack. Another thing, and Bobby can speak to this better than I can, When the Evening Comes, my favorite Undead song, When the Evening Comes, was not almost, but was offered as a Misfit song.
Yeah.
I think of When the Evening Comes as kind of like a unused Horror Business era Misfit song in that kind of way, because the whole band, Bobby showed Jerry and Joey how to play the song. They presented it to Glenn, right? Bobby, am I wrong?
Yeah.
And then Glenn was like, I write the songs.
Yeah.
Never
and
came
I respected
to be.
that. I respected that. I
Right.
kind of knew where he was coming from. You know, it's kind of like, you know, he didn't want to get in the kind of situation. If you don't write all the songs and you're the leader of the band and somebody leaves the band, they can really cause you a lot of grief.
Right. Right. Another thing, that first show that Bobby was telling us about. Okay, Bobby, I'm not sure if this was the first. I think this was the first show, which is what made me think of it. Jerry used to sew his own pants. He'd sew them out of spandex, and you have to use special stitching when you're sewing spandex. And what happened, Bobby? What happened to Jerry?
He on the first quarter, the first song, he jumped up, did a split, and the pants didn't split with him, and he was basically wearing an apron.
Another interesting note. So when the Misfits go over in 1979 to England, they bring with them a bunch of merch. Am I right, Bobby? There's a bunch of stuff. Records.
I know we bought a bunch of Horror Business 45s.
Right.
I remember that much. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm thinking of. A bunch of these records go over, and Joey in later years would always, kind of in interviews, including I think maybe even an interview that I did with him back in 2012. We'd kind of gripe, like, we had all this stuff and it was annoying. Like, we just had, Glenn and Jerry were always running off with stuff and doing stuff. And I didn't know what was going on and really annoyed, that kind of thing. Well, very recently, and shout out to Tanner. I know Bobby knows Tanner. Shout out to Tanner,
Tanner did the artwork.
Oh, Tanner did the artwork for that. Yeah. I did not know that. I think Tanner was the one who brought this to my attention, or maybe somebody else did, but Tanner, I don't know. I just remember Tanner being part of my recollection of this. So I mentioned those horror businesses go over. Well, apparently one box of those horror businesses. Now, if you guys know the record market, you probably know it better than I do. I mean, the Misfits stuff is gold, and right now the market for Misfits stuff has never been greater. I mean, it's just insane the prices these things are going for. Recently, so I don't know if it was years or months or weeks or whatever, a box of Horror Business 45s was discovered in a locker in England that dated back to when the Misfits went over there. It was been verified as these. So there's like this mint box of records that's just been, I guess, slowly being sold. I don't know what they're going for, because again, I can't keep up with these prices. Everything just has jumped up, skyrocketed, exploded. But that there are all these horror businesses floating around as a result. Speaking of other records, you see behind Bobby is Beware. And we have Bobby to thank for why Last Caress is even on that record, because Bobby was with Glenn when when they were remixing what many people don't think of it like this, but Beware is kind of a compilation. It's taking the first 2 7-inches, Bullet and Horror Business, and combining them, and then because Glenn is like a genius, he goes, let's leave off I don't know what happened there, Bobby.
I don't remember why he didn't want to leave Children of Heat on there, but he wanted to take that off, and he wanted to put something else on. And I told him, put Last Caress on it, and he said, no, I'm sick of that song. I said, yeah, you know what? You're the only person that's sick of that song. I said, you put that song on the record, it's going to make us famous.
And then who heard that song? Cliff Burton. Cliff Burton brings that to Metallica. Metallica covers it on Garage. I mean, you can trace how the whole thing breaks down. Another thing, and again, Bobby, maybe you could speak to this, because I don't know the in between. And please, Steve, tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much.
Chris is my director, so he'll pull out the cane if he has to. When you're doing Beware on Cherry or whatever, that's also how Glenn gets hooked up with Caroline Records at that time, right?
Yeah, Caroline was kind of tied in with Cherry Red, and
gotcha.
There was like 3 different labels that were like kind of like tied in on that somehow. And
then that eventually, as you know, and I will say, everybody kind of was talking about like why the Misfits mean so much to you. Me personally, I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a musician at all. But what I find so inspiring about the Misfits and the story is that the story of the Misfits, and the reason why we like to pour over the minutia, is because we are literally witnessing the American dream being realized. What is the American dream? By becoming being artists and finding autonomy through entrepreneurship at a punk rock level. And nobody did this better than the Misfits. They found a way to, look at Glenn Danzig. He starts his own record label, right? And then he hooks up with this guy from Caroline. And then what do you know? He's selling the records. He's putting out the records himself as his own label, which at the time was a pain in the ass, and you want to be signed to a major in the 80s. But now, if you're Glenn Danzig doing the Plan 9 thing now, you are doing really, really, really well. You are completely you have this automatic business that is then the distribution side of it is being handled by Caroline Records. And that all started back in 79 when they went to England, and the whole thing with Bobby and the thing and the thing of the thing.
There's also another thing. I don't know if you ever heard this. There's also another tie-in with Beware with another legendary band. Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks.
Huh.
Actually got into playing rock and roll music because he was in a store and he saw a copy of Beware, and he liked the cover, and he bought it, and he was so impressed that he started a band.
Wow.
And he contacted Richard Bishop, who had something to do with Beware, and Richard Bishop became the manager of Hanoi Rocks.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I got three more things here. Three more things. Ready?
Go
okay.
ahead.
Thing number one. Okay. One, actually, it's 3.5. First of all, we're talking about the Misfits. How did the Misfits start? Misfits starting even before Bobby. This is crazy. If you are able to hear certain recordings that are not been widely circulated, the Misfits kind of started off as, they're not a punk band per se. They're kind of like an art rock band, and it's very Doorsy, very, very Doorsy. It's a revelation to hear them without guitar. And I'm not talking about those 2 7-inch tracks. I'm talking about, you know, when they first started playing, they're first starting to play songs. There's no guitar element yet. And Glenn's on the keyboards, and his croon is just, he's channeling Morrison. It truly captures the imagination. This is a question for Bobby. I don't know the story. There's something about the Bad Brains and a taxi and you guys trying to get to the airport to go to England. And there's something about the drum kit being in the trunk. Am I making this all up? Something happened, right? With Earl. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think so. That doesn't, at least not at the time when I was with the band.
Okay.
That might be getting confused with some other Misfits event
Possible.
or something, brother. Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, and I will really shut up. This is a great story, and this ties into me personally. I'm living in Chicago at the time. The year is 2007. I'm walking down the street. I see this girl. She's got a bag, like a tote bag, and on it is a picture of Bobby. And it's the Bobby picture. It's that famous picture of Bobby where he's holding up his guitar. You know the one where he's got like the thing coming down or whatever. And
I know I got one of those bags laying around here somewhere.
Oh, you do have a bag?
Yeah,
oh,
somebody
amazing.
gave one to Diane. I'm looking around.
So,
is that it?
So I hope Bobby has the bag because it'll make it so much better. So I go to the girl whose name was Stephanie. I say, "Oh, Stephanie, you like the Undead?" And she goes, "Who's the Undead?" I go, "The Undead, Bobby Steele." "Who's Bobby Steele?"
Yeah.
"The guy on your bag right there." She goes, "I thought that was Jimi Hendrix."
Oh.
And I go, she goes, "I got this at Walmart." I sent an email to Bobby who, I'm just like one of 1,000 emails that Bobby receives probably, to his old email address. He probably used to get 100 emails. I said, "Hey, Bobby, do you know that they're selling your face on a bag at Walmart?" And Bobby goes, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I'm dealing with it right now." And so it goes.
Did he really look? Do you really look like Jimi Hendrix, Bobby, on the bag?
No, that's what was so funny. No, it's like a print though, right?
This is what's funny about it. I think I got a copy of the print someplace. I can't find the bag. I know Diana has 2 of them, but we actually went to court. Well, we didn't go to court. We had a meeting. Our lawyers flew out from Los Angeles, and we met with Walmart's lawyers, and they had the guy, because they subcontracted the bag to another company that made the bags for them. So they had that guy there, and it was really funny because I walked in dressed, the same way I always dressed,
Sure.
which was the same way I was on the bag. And I walk in, and I get introduced to the guy who did the manufacturing for them, and I look at him. He kind of looks like somebody I might know. So I said, "Oh, you look familiar," I said, did you ever live in New York? He says, "No." I said, and he looks at me and goes, "You look familiar too." And I just took the alligator tooth necklace that I was wearing. I just went, "I should." And we started talking, and they admitted that they were in the wrong. And so we kind of settled things. And I said, after we had, agreed on everything, I asked the guy, I said, "So, how did you come up with our picture?" And he said, "Well, we contracted a company that deals with finding images. And we told him we wanted something that had street cred. that we could use for this. And I said, well, where did he get the image? He says, I don't know, let's call him. So they call the guy, and we asked the guy, where did you get the image? He says, well, I went into the store on 8th Street. There was a store that was like, it was a Russian mob run store that sold bootleg t-shirts. Wow. And I'd actually gone in there and confiscated a couple of dozen like counterfeit Undead t-shirts at one point. And so the guy says, I went into the store and, I saw it, I bought the shirt. And so I said to the guy, well, didn't you think it was somebody's image? And he says, well, to tell you the truth, I thought it was Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, no.
I swear.
So crazy.
So Stephanie wasn't the only one.
No.
Dude,
yeah,
so crazy.
That's great.
Now I'm gonna be very curious. I need to see this image myself.
You have seen the image. It's such a common image. It's Bobby. It's like a headshot. It's like a headshot, and he's doing I don't know. He's doing a thing like he's
okay.
I mean, look, if you squint, they do look kind of similar.
No, but here's the thing. It's a print, right? Like it's not like a photograph. So, it's just black on the fabric. Like it's black outline on the fabric. So someone who's not like in touch with rock and roll might go, oh yeah, sure. Jimi Hendrix, like not realize. I think that's what Stephanie's deal was. So there it is.
Based on this image.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I know that picture. Yeah.
Incredible.
It's a wild Jimi Hendrix.
From a distance, if you squint and with a couple drinks, it could be Jimi Hendrix.
It could be Keith Richards too.
Oh, totally.
It's very similar to the Experience Hendrix company's logo. Because it's got the guitar on his show. It's fun.
That's probably what it was. So I've got a question. We got Jeff, who's the expert here. We got Chris, who's the expert here. Who's seen the Misfits the most times in concert between you two?
Oh man, how do we qualify that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how many times I saw the Jerry version of the Misfits.
Okay.
Maybe I'm gonna myself personally, maybe like 15, 16 times. Okay. Not a ton. Because I was gonna say after. I think the last time I saw the Jerry Fits in like 2001 or something, when Jerry was singing, it was so fucking terrible. I'm like, I'm done. I love this band, but I can't sit through this.
For the kids.
So that was it for me. I've never seen them since. But the original Misfits, the reunion shows, they've done 13, I think, gigs, and I've been to 7. I couldn't make them all, but
and you've flown all around. What was the furthest you've gone to see them, Chris?
I flew to LA for like 24 hours to see them and
oh my God.
Fly back.
Okay.
But yeah, I've seen them twice in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and then I flew back to Las Vegas to see them. So 7. They also did I think 5 or 6 other shows, and they were doing they did a show last weekend at some festival. Yeah, I
didn't realize they were playing this year.
Aftershock. Yeah.
I think they were a last minute replacement for My Chemical Romance, I think,
something like that.
But they did announce one show for next year back in Chicago, and they're going to do Riot Fest again, and they're going to do all of the Walk Among Us record. So I'm like, okay,
3 times.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll fly to Chicago again. And I did fly to Chicago once to see the Danzig Legacy show.
Great show.
Count. Yeah, so
great show.
Yeah, flown to Chicago a couple times.
Chris is a traveler, and when we did the Slayer episode, he's got the dibs on Slayer and traveling to see Black Sabbath shows too. So.
Yeah, well, Danzig as an entity, I've seen Danzig as a performer like 50 something times between Danzig, original Misfits, and Samhain, like 50-ish. Because I've seen Danzig like 42 or 44 or 46, something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but yeah, Misfits, there's not as many.
Yeah, the Jerry version of the Misfits used to play the chants every October.
Oh, all the time. But once once Doyle left and once Michael Graves was out, I'm like, this is just junk.
Yeah, I saw the
Stuff.
Misfits actually in Port Jervis at the Vault once. They played there, and I forget who was in the band then, but I think it was just Jerry at that time. And that was a while back at the Vault in Port Jervis.
Yeah, they in the 90s they played a lot. Misfits and Guar, Misfits and Typo, Misfits and Clutch, Misfits and Cannibal Corpse. I mean, they would play with anybody.
And
not the Undead.
well,
the Undead.
One time.
I promise if Bobby wants
that wasn't their choice.
That wasn't their choice.
We will.
But I did
Bobby
see
back and talk.
I was gonna say I did see a couple of years ago. Doyle played the Chance, and the Undead played the Chance in the different rooms, and that was awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah,
Alex came up and did When Evening Comes with us, and Rick Rivets was there. He came up and did I think 1 or 2 songs with us.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
I mean, you seem friendly with Doyle.
Oh, we're great. You know, I get along great with Doyle. You know, Doyle has always, been on my side.
Right.
Okay, he always, even like, I like, found out like Googie actually told me like decades ago that when Doyle found out that I was out of the band, he told them straight out, he says, "You guys are crazy." He said, "Why don't you just have 2 guitar players if you want me in the band?"
100%.
And Doyle's always been like, Doyle is the nicest guy of all the Misfits. He's real, he's genuine. If he doesn't like you, it's for a legitimate reason.
Well, anyhow, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Does anyone have any more to say before we wrap this up? Chris, anything else from you?
Oh, I was just going to say along those lines, Bobby, I'm sure I speak for Misfits fans everywhere, where as great as it is to see, the original Misfits, now that they are a 5-piece, God, I wish, no offense to AC Slade or AC Slade fans up there, but yeah, if there's got to be 2 Misfits guitarists, sweet Jesus, why couldn't we have you and Doyle at the same time? I'm sure
That's what it should be.
There's a myriad of reasons, unfortunately, but man, that would be the dream show for sure.
A large part is because like the contract that they have for doing these things states that if there's any original members, that they have to split the money evenly with them. And so I think promoters would consider me an original. And so
yeah.
They don't want they don't want to give me a nickel.
Which, listen, unfortunately, that makes sense because I have heard through the grapevine, and I don't want to name names, but they didn't want Doyle for similar reasons, which is nuts. So
yeah. It's not right what they did to Doyle.
Yeah.
Sheesh. And of course, you can buy Misfits toys at Rock Fantasy.
There we go.
Allo has at least 2 of
I got
these.
mine. For
the kids. For the kids.
For the kids. Yeah, they're on out here. And Ralph probably, we could do a whole episode on Ralph and Chris's record and toy collection, but that will be down the road one day.
Wow.
And I'd like to thank everyone for giving their time to the Rock Fantasy Files channel tonight. Jeff, it was awesome to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Bobby,
you're the man.
I'm going to invite you to come back too. And does Bobby have a special guest that's popping in or no? Looked like someone was popping in, but Bobby, it's been great.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Diana. Hope you're well.
Hi, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Same here. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Steve Levin, John Mcatee, Ralph Tambora, Chris Allo, and we will put and we will put some of Bobby Steele's info in the video description so you can reach out to Bobby, and please support all the bands during this pandemic. I mean, some are back out. Some people think it's normal, but it's definitely not normal for everyone yet. And all the bands could definitely use your support. And he's got some stuff that's going for a good cause at his website. So please go out and support Bobby Steele. And I promise to have you back on whenever you want, Bobby, just to talk about anything else. All right.
You can give my email address. It's public information anyway.
Okay.
Undead at Juno.
Undead
at Juno.
He still has the Juno, man.
Yep.
He's had it forever.
Old school.
I'm consistent. It still works.
Consistency, man.
Yep.
Next week, we'll be back on Wednesday night, and we will be talking another great fall October haunt band, Typo Negative. And we have a few other things working on the channel right now. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content and know when it's coming on, and hit like and mention your favorite Misfit songs, Bobby Steele moments, or anything else, or what Chris Allo has been very good tonight. 2 weeks ago, they were loving him on the channel though, because he spoke his mind about what he thought about the new Iron Maiden. So that was a very an unpopular statement. But anyhow, thank you everyone, and stay safe and rock on, and we'll see you again soon.